Dr. Al-Sudani has put up a quite interesting case here of a localized type of pustular psoriasis called Acrodermatitis continua, sometimes also called Acrodermatitis of Hallopeau. Now, whenever you see pustules like this, you tend to think that this is infective. And if it was only in one digit like this, you might look at it and say, is this a localized type of herpes simplex? But in psoriasis, you have excess neutrophils in the skin. Usually, there's not enough of them to cause pustules. But in this form of psoriasis, there are enough neutrophils underneath the stratum corneum to cause these pustules in the skin. Usually, though, the pustules occur around the nail itself. And if we have a little look at this one, you can see that the pustules are actually under the edge of the nail here, and they're lifting the nail off. And there is some inflammation around the outside edge here as well. So these are non-infected pustules. They're inflammatory. And this is part of the picture that you see in this type of localized pustular psoriasis. Now, it can affect one or more digits. And these pustules form beneath and around the nail plate. And if there's enough inflammation from them, it'll lift that whole nail off. And sometimes, if there's destruction to the nail matrix at the base here, the nail loss can in fact be permanent. And you can get changes in the bone in the terminal digit there, so that you're left with a sort of pencil-thin terminal digit because of the damage that this condition causes. Let me show you some other examples of it that we have here. Here's an example that I had in a lady, and you can see the extent of the inflammation that's occurring here. Her nails have lifted off here. You can see that there are some pustules, in fact, underneath some of these nails here as well. And if we go along and look at some of her other images, you can see the state of play with this one here. Let's just enlarge this slightly. You can see how there's oozing under here where there's been pustules under these nails as well. And these nails are all threatening to lift off. This one has in fact lifted off already. So it's quite a worrying condition, this. And as I say, it can be a scarring condition if it destroys the nail matrix. This is just a close-up of that toenail. Now, how do you treat this? Well, in point of fact, you apply strong topical steroids. This isn't infective, it's inflammatory. So you need to shut off the inflammation. And you can use something like clobetasol, but here in Australia, we use Duprazone OV ointment or cream. We put it on, we wrap some Glad wrap around it so that it will in fact penetrate into this and settle down this inflammation. These were some other pictures of the same patient a little bit later on. You can see how all the inflammation's settled here. She's lost the nail here. There's still some pustules underneath these ones here. Occasionally, these patients need other drugs such as methotrexate and mirtazapine, a retinoid, to try and shut this process down. This can also not just affect the toenails, it can affect the fingernails, as we saw in Dr. Al-Sudani's case. And rarely you can get a generalized pustular psoriasis. Now, if that happens, and instead of having the pustules just localized acrally like this, if you start getting a generalized pustular psoriasis, you've got a much more serious condition. So let's have a little look at some of the other examples we have here in the atlas. This was a case of my own that we had, and this one was affecting primarily the fingernails. You can see, though, there's some nail dystrophy here. This one's dystrophic as well, but you're mainly seeing psoriasis itself. That's the more typical psoriasis that you would see, with the red and the scale without there being a lot of pustules. And the issue with this lady was it mainly just acral psoriasis that she had here without the pustular variant. But again, she was treated in the same way with strong topical steroid under occlusion and it did in fact settle that down. Another example that we have here, I think, is from Dr. Shabazz Janua. And here you can see a lot more pustules affecting the whole of the terminal phalanx here, the terminal digit. Again, some crusting and some pustules here as well. The nails weren't damaged to the same extent in this particular case, and sometimes you can get more involvement of the skin like this than the nails themselves. But in the typical case of acropustulosis of Hallopeau, the pustules do occur under the nails with damage to the nail bed and lifting up of the nail. Now again, looking at that, you might well think if it was just on its own that it was a herpetic whitlow, that it was a localized herpes virus infection. It used to be seen in dentists when they didn't wear gloves as much. But once you see it in several fingers like this, and you see the typical pustules under the nail itself, lifting the nail off, then this is acropustulosis of Hallopeau. If you swab it, you'll grow nothing. And that's why it's an inflammatory process, and strong topical steroids are needed, or methotrexate or oral retinoids to settle it down. The only other condition you might see, you may confuse with this, might be in a young child. And the condition is called parakeratosis pustulosa. And this, I don't think we've got an example of it in the actual atlas here. But in that particular case, let me just have a look and see if we have any parakeratosis pustulosa. No, we don't. Okay. But in that condition, it's usually a single digit in a young child, and the pustules begin just under the edge of the nail, at the end of the nail here, in this area, in the hyponychium. And it's usually pustules, little vesicles, and occasionally you'll get some hyperkeratosis under the terminal edge of the nail, the distal edge of the nail there as well. And it may become slightly thickened. It can be a bit chronic, but again, it's usually just one digit, and it will respond also to strong topical steroids. And people aren't sure whether this is really a variant of psoriasis or whether it might be an eczema. So that's parakeratosis pustulosa. But here, acrodermatitis continua of Hallopeau, an inflammatory condition, a form of localized pustulous psoriasis. And the one that Dr. Al-Sudani put up today was really quite a nice example of this condition. Thank you very much.